Alright, what's going on, guys? It is your boy TKD Winter here, back here at Source. And if you guys missed the Spider-Man Miles Morales breakdown that we did earlier on in the week, make sure to go check that video. I'll put a card here up on the screen. Make sure to go check that out. Very good video, I thought, overall. You know what I'm saying? If you missed it, then go check it out. But I did speculate on some things in that video that came to fruition and came to be factual on this PlayStation blog update by Insomniac Games involving the whole game and just overall just ironing out some things that a lot of people had questions about, and including myself as well. So without further ado, let's go over this Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales update involving the game. So they started this whole thing off by essentially giving thanks to everyone that showed support at their announcement at the PS5 review event, of course, of Spider-Man Miles Morales. Again, I was super surprised by it. It was a very great thing to see. And then they slowly went on into like showing off the history of how they were sneaking him into the E3 2017 demo at the end, as well as a bunch of other things to really culminate up to this game's inception, in terms of they've always wanted to make Miles a really big part of the universe that they're making within the Spider-Man PS4 universe and stuff like that, right? So they say here, quote, "As we continue with the Marvel Spider-Man universe, we knew that Miles' origin as a Spider-Man was something that needed its own game. Miles' multicultural background reflects a more modern, diverse world, and we wanted to give players a new story with new set pieces, fresh villains, and unique quests across Marvel's New York City. This had to be a can't-miss next adventure in Marvel's Spider-Man universe." So I think them saying that, you know, we have Marvel's New York City that will house a bunch of new stories, new set pieces, fresh villains, etc., unique quests and all that, it sounds like they are kind of saying here that the game will be taking place within the same map. But let's keep it going here. But that's just kind of what I got out of that. I mean, let me know what you can see in the comments below. Do you guys think anything different? Let me know your thoughts. But that pretty much to me is very telling that they're trying to say that this will be the overall same map, just updated and all that great stuff. Let's set the scene for the game a little more. It's now wintertime, about a year after the events of the first game. Marvel's New York is covered in snow, and just before Christmas break, a war between an energy corporation and a high-tech criminal army has broken out. Miles' new home in Harlem is at the heart of the battle. This is very interesting too, so I'm gonna look definitely into this. I don't have time right now to look into it more in depthly. Maybe I will at a later video, of course, come back to this whole thing, but it sounds like the story is going to be happening with a war between an energy corporation and a high-tech criminal army. So very interesting stuff here. That can mean a lot of different things. I will, you know, again, tap my people in the community that know Spider-Man a lot more than me in terms of villains and stuff like that, and I will see what I can conjure up here involving that, because I definitely want to follow that thread. Looks really cool and all that great stuff. And of course, coming after the whole thing about, some people thought that it was a DLC that they announced for Spider-Man PS4 coming to PS5. They thought it was like an expansion. We finally got some clarification here straight from Insomniac. They say here, "We know a lot of you want to know how big the game is. Our team at Insomniac has been working incredibly hard to bring you a fantastic Miles Morales adventure since we concluded development on Marvel's Spider-Man. You'll experience a full story arc with Miles, one that's more akin to a game like Uncharted: The Lost Legacy in terms of overall scope. Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales is an important, heartfelt, emotional, and essential experience to expanding the Marvel Spider-Man universe, and we hope it will be for you as well." Now look, a lot of people were kind of throwing on the timeline that, oh, why is it going to be a short experience, this and the third. I loved Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, right? Because it was a game that the only honestly negative is that you wanted more out of it. And that sounds weird, but when I say that, is because when you hear that the game is going to be like a Lost Legacy, right, in terms of being a like overall shorter experience, what it really was that it was an Uncharted game that had everything that an Uncharted game has in terms of set pieces and character development, witty, cool one-liners, you know, really interesting villains and everything, and it had everything that makes Uncharted an Uncharted game without Nathan Drake, but in a 12-hour experience. And I think that is a great thing that we are getting here for PS5, you know what I'm saying? And Lost Legacy was not full price. It was like $40, I believe, at launch, and so maybe that could be the same thing for Miles Morales as well, and have that $40 price range. We know Insomniac isn't shy about that price range. They did price Ratchet and Clank at that as well back in 2016, and so overall I think this is a great move. I think it's gonna be super nice. And on top of that, guys, we're getting a Spider-Man game on launch at PS5. The only way they could do that is to make something that's a little bit more condensed, like the Uncharted Lost Legacy. So I think overall it's a great move. A lot of people may disagree with me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. For me personally, I think it's great. We're gonna get a full story arc with Miles. I love Miles Morales. To me, it's all good. I have no complaints here on this front. But next up here, of course, a lot of people were kind of worried about, all right, like how much of an advancement they can make with a Spider-Man game that's going to have a condensed overall story and size of the game, but still somehow take advantage of the PlayStation 5 hardware. And they laid out completely what they'll be doing. So we say here, we are also excited for the game to demonstrate the power of the PlayStation 5 this holiday. Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales will show off near instant loading, ray tracing, 3D audio, and the DualSense controller. We upgraded our characters with 4D scanned and improved skin shading for more realistic looking characters and spline based hair that moves far more naturally. Many of the city's assets have also been updated to take advantage of the new console. As you experience Miles' story, you'll see, hear, and feel things in a whole new way, all thanks to PS5. Which honestly here isn't really anything that groundbreaking. We knew that there were going to be improvements, of course, with Spider-Man Miles Morales, and it looks like we definitely got those confirmed here with the near instant loading. I can't wait to see what that's like. So of course the near instant loading is going off of those famous PS5 load times that we got, that is comparing Spider-Man running on PS4 versus Spider-Man PS4 running on PS5. We saw how instantaneous that is going to be, so cannot wait to see how that all unfolds in the full game. Of course, ray tracing will be utilized a lot more with, I assume, the buildings in New York. That's going to be super cool to be swinging, you know, downtown, maybe seeing the lights reflect off of the buildings, as well as yourself, Miles Morales, swinging and seeing your reflections in the mirror. That is going to look really, really cool overall on the buildings of New York. So it's 3D audio, you know, of course, 3D audio and the DualSense controller having all of those, you know, bells and whistles work with the, you know, haptic feedback, I'm assuming, and different stuff. Maybe they're going to have the haptic feedback do a lot of cool stuff when you're like firing a web, and, you know, the tension maybe they could create on the sticks of, well, not sticks, of like the L2 and R2, you know what I'm saying? Like having that tension feel when you're swinging. It's going to be cool. Okay, I definitely cannot wait for this. And the last thing here, when they first announced this whole, like, you know, hey, let's talk about Miles Morales a little bit more, let's answer all these questions and everything, they did put out a trailer to go alongside that, a little bit of an interview. Very, very timely done. I love the way they, you know, overall did this and are able to double down and communicate on, you know, certain things that the community has questions about. I love this whole thing. But they did have a trailer that showed off a little bit of concept art with Peter Parker, Spider-Man, of course, and Miles Morales both swinging at the same time. So a lot of people were wondering, all right, where does Peter Parker fit into all this? Is he in the story? You know, it's a year after the events of you know, Spider-Man PS4, so where is Peter Parker at? We have a nice little clarification here that doesn't tell a lot of info, but does give us a little bit of what we're looking for. He says here, oh, and one last thing, many of you fans have wondered if Peter Parker is okay. Don't worry, we still have much of Peter's story left to tell, but this game is all about Miles, a critical part of our Spider-Man universe, and you won't want to miss what happens. So that's pretty much the answer there. Not really a lot there. A little bit of a cop-out, some might say, but hey, you know what? We are getting Spider-Man 2 on PS5 that will star our boy Yuri Lowenthal, Peter Parker. Let's go. Cannot wait for it, guys. And also, they do reiterate multiple times in this whole thing that, you know, Miles Morales is a really, really important part of this universe. I really wonder what they're grabbing at there, what they are working towards. It seems to be big, but let me know what you can see in the comments below. What are you guys' thoughts on this whole update? Did you guys like what they, you know, answered and everything? Do you have any more questions about Spider-Man Miles Morales? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And make sure also, while you are down there, to check out our description where you can find our Twitter, our Discord, as well as our Anchor link to listen to our long-form content and podcast format. That, of course, being Road to Part 2, as well as Road to Ghost of Tsushima. Like if you've enjoyed it, as well as subscribe to PlayStation Source to keep up with the latest and greatest and all things Spider-Man Miles Morales and PS5 and all things PlayStation. Thank you for watching, and as always, greatness awaits.